Hello, my name is Dale Dufay. I'm going to narrate this video for Mary Hall. This is about the discovery in Nevada, which was thought to be an ancient pyramid site. Now, I'm not going to come up with any excuses as to why I thought it was. It just, I could go on. Well, I've done many videos about it since its discovery. So really isn't Mary's fault. It was more my, you know, insisting that this had to be a pyramid. But the thing is, here I even did this drawing here. Spent a lot of time on this. I was so thoroughly convinced that this was definitely, what else could it be? And then Mary had an alert viewer mention that he worked there. And then I remember in one of the previous videos, someone else had mentioned they worked there. And she was even saying that, sorry guys, that's part of the mining operation. And of course, I didn't believe it. How could it possibly be something this tall, 300 feet tall, and 1,800 by 1,800 feet, perfect square, I may add. But then in the most recent video, which Mary and I produced, that was about the same topic, and it was done simply because another person was interested, Mary Joyce, that she was going to do an article about it on her website. But anyway, the alert viewer mentioned that they worked there and that it was what they call a leach pad. And here we can go into, let me get out of this and here's what a leach pad is. Okay, it's about part of the process of they put the iron ore or metal ore, silver ore in this case, out on a pad that's impenetrable. They put like a plastic barrier down, and these can reach upwards of 500 feet. Because they keep pouring, piling on the ore as they're mining it, and then they, leach it. Basically, put chemicals on it, sulfuric acid, you name it, to just dissolve the stone and leave the metal. So those pads have been being used, or that method has been being used. It's for quite some time. Well, since the very beginning. And if you're not going to find silver nuggets here, it's all in the ore. It's in the stone, so they have to separate it from the stone. So they use leach pads, and these are some examples. See here, they even have the step here, and then they dump the ore onto it, and then they use either natural water or they have to actually artificially put water on top of it to rinse these chemicals through, and they permeate through, of course, and then they hit this barrier that they put down. Here's one where they started the pit, and then of course they fill it and it's protected, and then they actually reach up, but a lot of them don't have, like these illustrations show kind of a pyramidal, pyramid shape. And here there's also ponds that are nearby. One they call, ironically, a pregnant pond, and then the other one's a barren pond. The pregnant pond has the precious metals in it, and the barren pond does not. But it's all part of the process with this ore heap, which is basically the leach pad. The leach pad is underneath it, underneath the ore heap. So I started looking into this. I still, after the person made the comment, I still wasn't convinced. I thought that he was a debunker. So I started really, really researching, and I still really wasn't convinced because there was too many things that, first of all, in any of these images, none of them are shaped in a perfect square. You can see that they're just kind of random piles in most cases. But then, so I still wasn't convinced. Here's a good diagram. Here's the leach pad on the bottom, and then the spent ore. And then here they show the precipitation. This particular article was about the danger of old leach pads that weren't properly sealed with, like the modern ones have plastic and everything. But the older ones don't. They have like natural pads with clay and things like that. So there is a concern about that. And then I saw this, and that's when I started thinking, oh boy, Maybe there's something to it, what that viewer said. And because I saw these underneath the topsoil of that supposed pyramid. Okay, and then here's some good pictures of the Candelaria mining operation back in the 1800s. There used to be quite a large town there. In fact, there was 24 saloons, 5 banks, so on and so forth, and a population, depending on what article you read, it was either 1,000, maxed out at 1,000 residents, or 1,500. But it was quite a large little mining town back in the day. Here's another cool photograph. I was peering through these photographs in the background to see this pyramid base, which would prove that it's not a leach pile. So I was looking, trying to debunk this person's claim. I was thinking that they were debunking, you know, Mary's claim or my claim. I'm not blaming. This is mostly my fault. I had her convinced it was what I thought it was. Okay, so we can't blame Mary. This is we both discovered it at the same time, but she listened to me and my rhetoric about it. But anyway, I kept looking in the background, seeing if I'd see this base back there, and of course I couldn't. Here's some more mining. This one's actually, there's a lot of open pit mining there. There's 2 big pits. But there's actually some tunnel mining going on there too. Or even back in the 1800s, you could see the horse and buggy down there. Here's the actual open pit mine at the Candelaria site right now. This is a recent picture. So again, I was like looking in the background for that pyramid base. Here's the other one. I think one's called the Northern Pit, and then there's another one. The names escape me. But these are actually recent pictures of the site. And there's a company called Silver One that is exploring this site because it closed down in the 90s. It was real booming in the late 1800s into the 1950s, and then shut down, and then started up again in the 80s, and then shut down again because the silver prices fell. And so it wasn't worth it. And then it opened up again like in the 90s, and then shut down again because of the oil, silver prices and whatnot, the commodities. And then now Silver One out of Canada, the company is looking into this area to tap into these piles here. This is not this here is like a waste pile. It's not this is ore they don't dump on the leach pad. The leach pad is only used to with the good ore. This is like the waste ore, they call it. So I learned quite a bit thanks to this viewer. I did a lot more research, which I obviously should have done before I proclaimed that it was a pyramid. But here's another example of leach pads. This started making me think that that's not what we're looking at. But then again, when you look at this down here, you can almost see, like if you were looking at that proposed pyramid base, that'd probably be just like this within it. But note that it's not in a square. I mean, it is pretty much, but they weren't too concerned with that. Here's another site in a town, Candelaria in 1880. And this is some really good information in here. I still, at this point, wasn't convinced that I thought it was still a pyramid. You know what I mean? And but then I found this, like 1:00 in the morning. I found this. It was about the leach pads and how Silver One is drilling into the leach pads to see, because there's still like 40% of ore in there. I mean, rich ore that had contents of silver and gold in it. 41% silver, 15% gold. So it was very advantageous for this company, especially with silver and gold prices being so high, to revisit these leach pads and rework them and get the remaining gold and silver out of them. So here we go. There's leach pad 1, and there's leach pad 2, the pyramid. Now, why they did it in a perfect square is beyond me. Obviously, it was done during the boom in the 80s. Again, I didn't look that recent to me, but apparently it was. During the boom, they could afford to make a perfect square. Maybe they thought that that would help the leaching process better. I don't know what their intent was, but they did make it in a perfect square. And then, some of the arguments I was making about it being a pyramid was the fact that it was square and that it's extremely difficult. So they must have brought in a surveyor to get this base or this leach pad started. So there's the proof. It's debunked by alert viewer, and then further debunked by me myself, who I would have bet my life that was a pyramid by its orientation and everything. Because if you watch the video, I was like totally convinced. I would have bet my life that this was a pyramid. But here it clearly says it is a leach pad number 2 of all things. And this one here, which I always wondered what the heck this thing was. We can go back to Google Earth and I'll show you. We can make a comparison. I always saw this heart-shaped one. I always thought that, that's obviously, if you read that, I don't know if you can read it, but I think that's basically one of the piles that they just pour the, worthless ore into. Oh, here they call it low-grade stockpile. There, I found all these. I was thinking maybe during my, attempt to, you know, reassert the claim that this is a pyramid. I was trying to assume that these were leach pads, but they're not. This one, there's only 2 leach pads in this whole mining area. Now this takes up thousands of acres here, this boundary here. But this whole mining area only had 2 leach pads, and I thought that would support that this being not a leach pad and a pyramid base, because I thought that these had to be the leach pads. This one here, and this one, this one here. Because you could see evidence that maybe they were, but indeed they're not. This was leach pad 1, that's leach pad 2. So there it goes. That's not a pyramid base. I was totally wrong about it. And I'm glad that the alert viewers were kind enough to mention that. And I have to add that the gentleman who brought this up, I think his name, forgive me if I'm wrong, Craig, I should have looked it up. But you could see it in the comments. That, in fact, I even responded immediately and said I find that, highly doubtful and things like that. I even doubted that he worked there and everything. But at 1 o'clock in the morning, I realized that he was absolutely correct. So it was very a good thing that he did, because this article was about to go out and then in Mary Joyce's web page, so it wouldn't have looked too good for her. So I was able to stop her before she got it to her webmaster, and she was going to do that this morning. So yeah, don't get confused. Mary Joyce is a whole another Mary, and she lives in North Carolina. Our Mary Hall here lives in South Haven, Michigan. But Mary Joyce was she was about to send it to her webmaster this morning, and I stopped her in time. So that was a good thing, because this is debunked. This is not a pyramid base. It's a leach pad from the mining operations. No doubt. He's the person that brought this to our attention, said he was working there when they closed this all down and stopped this construction. It was like in 1996. And everything in my research since that time, something I should have done in the first place. I apologize for that. Actually, I did. I've never heard of a leach pad. I knew a little bit about mining operations, but not on this scale where they would have leach pads this huge. Again, this is 1,800 feet by 1,800 feet. And the angle in the top pad is approximately 1,000 by 1,000. I mean, this is huge, but they needed to be large in order to help the chemicals from, seeping into the ground. And also they had to be very large to handle the incredible weight put on them. And I did mention that it would take, there's 24 million cubic yards of material in there. Obviously it's ore, now that I know, but there's 24 million yards, and I calculated that it would take 5 trucks 5 trucks, each truck holding 5 cubic yards. It would take them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. It would have taken them 27 years. But obviously, they were able to construct this leach pad in 10 years. So they, being in the 80s, they had much larger, those trucks, I think, I don't know how many cubic yards they hold, but a lot more than 5. And they obviously had a lot more than 5 trucks to do this, because I looked into other, aspects of this, and they said, in fact, one article was even complaining about how they could have done, be mining more, like another shift, 3 shifts a day. They were only doing 2 shifts a day. 2 shifts were doing the milling, 1 shift was doing the mining, and then there was another shift making this leach pad that was they had 3 shifts on that project. On this, they had 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, doing this thing. So they were able to build it, or complete it in 1996, and they started it in early 80s. So it took them over 10 years to do. So that makes sense. So this goes to show that it's capable of being done by modern humans, which it apparently was. There's no doubt it was artificial. No doubt. My question, it didn't seem that recent to me, but I was wrong. Okay, so let's go back to the Google Earth if you're still interested at this point. And I'll show you, if we can compare. I'll even overlay that drawing over this site. So at least now we know what it is. I was like totally wrong about it being a pyramid base, but from my trained eye, I could like totally. This is totally what it looked like to me, because there again it just sticks out too much. And here's leach pad number 1, and here's leach pad number 2. But see the difference between the two? That's what confused me. And this heart-shaped one here, and here's the actual mines, the open ones. There's tunneling also, but this one here is a spent ore, and then there's also another spent ore here, and things like that. But the only 2 leach pads are this one, leach pad 1 by Pick Handle Gulch, and then here's leach pad 2. All along it's been a leach pad. So I stand corrected. Please accept my apology, and don't. This is, again, Mary discovered it with me, but she believed my assumptions about it, which again were incorrect, and I apologize for that. So thank you for watching, and we'll talk at you later.